Right inside the finger came up with something. Holy shit. What do we do? I'm a cop. I have to know.
Please don't come any closer, Inspector.
We're not wired.
Okay, you can take out a camcorder, film it and share it on YouTube for all I care. What I meant was I just farted and it still whiffs a bit.
You have information for us?
No, you can find all this info on the web. What you want, what you really want, is something that puts it all together. What you want is a story.
A story can be true or false.
Aye, but my name isn't Raymond Buchanan and I don't work for the BBC. Tough crowd. Our story begins, as these stories often do, with an up-and-coming politician. He's a pompous twit, born of wealth and privilege, related to the Queen, and his father became obscenely rich by helping people avoid paying their fair share to society via offshore tax havens. He gets the kind of education only the rich and well-connected can buy in the likes of Eton and Oxford, leaving him with a complete disregard for the way ordinary men and women have to struggle to live their lives. His idol is Margaret Thatcher, and his dream is to one day do what she couldn't manage to, and that is to finish privatising what's left of the public sector and bring an end to the welfare system in the UK. Although he's not exactly sure how to accomplish this, even with his uncanny ability to mislead and deceive the British public without actually telling a flat-out lie.
We're all in this together.
Then lo and behold, a miracle.
Stocks fell off a cliff, the largest single point drop in history.
Share prices
The endless deregulation of the financial sector, started by Thatcher and continued under Blair and Brown, leaves the UK's banks completely undefended when Wall Street suffers the biggest crash since the Great Depression. Imagine a banking system so volatile, so over-leveraged that a tiny 3% drop in a single bank's asset base would crash the entire system. Hardly anyone had heard of Lehman Brothers before September 2008, but now the days of cheap and easy credit were over. Of course, the only way to keep the system from collapsing altogether is to mortgage the future of every man, woman and child in the UK, and public debt begins to skyrocket. With banks unable and unwilling to lend money, huge numbers of businesses can no longer get loans to keep their project financed, and hundreds of thousands of people are made unemployed in a matter of weeks. Workers became willing to accept reductions in pay and conditions for fear of losing their jobs. And it is the fear of losing what little they have that will be the ultimate motivator for people to agree to all that was to come. It's at this point in our story that along comes a spider. He's a slimy little git who seems to always have a look on his face like he's just thought of something filthy. And together they decide that instead of blaming the banking sector for the crisis, that they should shift the blame onto the country itself. Three demographics are chosen to attack: disabled people, the unemployed and public sector workers. The country will be convinced that anyone who has a public sector pension or claims benefits are the real cause for the deficit. Before long, everyone is a target. Single mothers in part-time work, the very lowest paid workers right across Britain, pensioners, stroke victims, the blind, even patients in a coma are forced to shovel the blame. Sadly, they fail to convince enough of the people to vote Conservative in an outright majority, despite the opposition sabotaging their leader in the election campaign. So they make a deal with the Liberal Democrats. For one referendum on changing the voting system to AV, the Lib Dums have to agree to vote for everything the Tories put forward, including forcing them to break their pledge not to raise student tuition fees. They already have the support of the majority of the UK's print media, but to guarantee their plan will work, they have to get the BBC brought into line. Bosses at the Beeb are easily scared shitless with threats of cutting the licence fee, exposure of the hidden lives of their longest serving and most beloved celeb presenters, and even the threat of closing the BBC down altogether. With Auntie doing exactly as they're told, the plan becomes a doddle, and the taxpayers' perception of what their money is spent on is so distorted it's not even close to reality. Slavery is brought back in the form of the government's work programme. Benefits are cut, forcing people to starve to death. The working poor get poorer. Inequality goes through the roof. And they even manage something Maggie could only have ever dreamed of, to privatise the nation's beloved NHS. By the time she died in her bed at the Ritz, our little politician had put in place plans to have wall-to-wall broadcasting of tributes to Thatcher, rewriting her history as the greatest leader the UK has ever seen, a funeral to match that of Princess Diana's, and plans for a museum to further whitewash the legacy of pain and suffering she wreaked upon millions. Now, private companies have been handed the reins of huge areas of the public sector, allowing them to fill their own pockets with billions of pounds of taxpayers' cash, often funneling it offshore so they will never be seen again. And if something isn't done soon to stop them, then the welfare system, as they say, will be history.
Can you prove any of this?
Prove? You people. If it's not in the 6 o'clock news, you think it can't possibly be happening. Wake up! You can find this stuff on Google! People are dying and the country is being robbed.
Right. We'd like to take you into protective custody, Mr.
You mean lock me away and shut me up? No, I don't think so. You do what you like with the story, but I'd suggest you go shout it from the rooftops.
Why didn't you come forward before? What were you waiting for?
Waiting? We've been campaigning and screaming about this for years. Sadly, it's only now that people are starting to listen. And I'd be doing a disservice to every name on that wall if I didn't speak out. Now, if you'll excuse me, Inspector, I have to go spread the word to more people. Tatty bye.